So I'm going to do a quick countdown to live streaming. And my vice chair is Councillor Andy Brown, who is sat to my left. Can I please remind everyone that today's meeting is being audio recorded and live streamed via the council's website and will be made publicly available in the next few days on that website. Recording is allowed at council committee meetings. I've not been notified that anyone has contacted Democratic Services that they wish to record the meeting today. Is there anyone in the room who does wish to record the meeting? In which case, can you raise your hands and let us know? Okay, can't see any hands going up there. Thank you. In terms of housekeeping, could we please ensure that mobile phones are switched off or kept on silent? I've not been made aware that there is a fire alarm expected this afternoon. If the alarm does sound, please gather in the main square at the front of these offices and leave via the nearest fire exit. The officers in attendance today to support the meeting are Andrea Muscroft, who's the development team team manager, Owen Holmes, who's the planning officer, Kate Lavelle, solicitor, and Vicky Davies from Democratic Services. So if I could move to item 1 on the agenda, please. Apologies for absence. Vicky, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from councillors Barbara Brodigan, David Noland and Andrew Williams, and Councillor Nick Brown is subbing for Andrew Williams. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So moving on to agenda item 2, minutes for the meeting that was held on Monday, the 2nd of June, 2025. These can be found on pages 3 to 6 of the agenda. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Okay, so could I ask for someone to approve the minutes and someone to second them? Okay, thank you very much. I think Councillor Brown. Thank you. Right, so if we could move on to agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to declare? Okay, so that's nobody. Thank you. So if we could move on to substantive business at agenda item 4, which is the full planning application for permission for dismantling of existing frame building, including extensions, conversion and extension of traditional agricultural building, change of use class to provide a wedding/events venue, and associated external works and landscape works on behalf of Worley Wise Farm LLP. So if I could pass over to the case officer, please, to introduce the report to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is the presentation for the application at Worley Wise Farm in Cowling for the full planning permission for the dismantling of the existing pole frame building, including extensions, conversion of and extension of traditional agricultural buildings, change of use class to provide a wedding and events venue, and the associated external works and landscaping works. So I can just point members to the slides on the screen. I'm just going to go through a few slides for you. So the first slide shows Worley Wise Farm in its setting. The red outline denotes the application site with the buildings to almost the centre of the screen there. The red outline goes to the east to incorporate a proposed landscaping area with a pond, and obviously this is the access and the parking areas there, but we'll show you a proposed site plan in the next couple of slides. This is just an aerial view shot of the application site, and you can see you've got Worley Wise Lane going from west, dropping down almost southeast, and then back up east as you head back up towards Cowling Hill Lane. The application site's in the centre of the screen there, and as you can see, it's surrounded by various agricultural fields on all edges. So the existing site includes the existing access off Wally-Wise Lane, the access road to the existing buildings here. You've got an existing public right-of-way that runs down the access, but this is subject to a diversion order. That is, we've got an application, but it's currently not in progress because we're awaiting the outcome of this proposal. You've got the existing farmhouse, which is on the eastern side of the development. The remainder of the barn buildings with the part demolished end extension, that's it's got a front wall, and that's probably about it, with the existing steel portal frame buildings to the north. Here you've got the existing silage clamp, which is obviously disused for a number of years now. The council have a record of about 5 to 8 years where this site has no longer been used for the farming enterprise. So just moving on to the proposed site. As you can see, it uses the existing access as you come in from Wally-Wise Lane. Areas of planting to the left and right of the access, with the woodland area screening views from the east, and an attenuation pond for the surface water drainage down on the southeast boundary of the site. As you can see, the existing public right-of-way still goes through the site, but the proposed diversion is to be on the opposite side of this wall, taking it out of the application site, meaning that it's not disrupted by vehicle movements from the parking areas within the site, and vehicles just and better for pedestrian safety. But obviously this is subject to a diversion application. There's 36 spaces contained within the site in the areas to the north, east, few to the rear of the building, including 4 accessible spaces, with the intervening planting between the spaces to the northeast, with access roads constructed in gravel chippings. You've got the 2 plant rooms to the north boundary, one with a green roof and one with an array of solar panels, both to house the electrical, gas generators, air source heat pumps, all your utilities and your refuse storage areas. The existing farmhouse is currently being restored and is on the eastern side of the application site, with the 2 holiday accommodations that are going to be used ancillary to the wedding venue when it's in use, to the centre. And then the western array of the barn is to accommodate the wedding venue, with the extensions to the western gable and an outdoor seating area further west. So this is the existing view facing west within the site. As you can see to the left of the screenshot is the existing farmhouse currently being restored. There's quite a lot of building works going on at the minute, but these 2 buildings here are the holiday accommodations that are currently under construction. And then just to the far end, it's a bit difficult to see, but this is the location of the rear of the steel extension, which is shown in this box here. This will accommodate the kitchen areas, accessible toilets, male and female toilets, and the rear of the bar area as well. And you've got the green roof of the building above. To the right of that screenshot is the 2 plant rooms. As you can see, the one to the furthest western plant room is just slightly higher than the one that's close to the access. Both this one here is measuring 3 meters from ground floor, and the one behind is 3.5 meters from ground floor level, with the site sloping up. You can't see on this one, but it does slope up to towards Wally-Wise Lane, giving screening from the road. This is views east from the western side of the site, views across the site east. The existing silage clamp in front of you, where it's currently disused with the portal steel frame buildings that are to be demolished. Oh, sorry about that, I've just brought something on my screen. This is the location of the new steel, rustic steel extension. Predominant openings are all kept to the western and frontal boundary of the extension, and views from Wally Wise Lane are going to be quite screened by the existing building. So this screenshot is views south of from the north of the site, viewing south. As you can see, the existing farmhouse far left with the two accommodations in the centre. Anything beyond that blue tarp in the roof is the site of the wedding venue. You can see from the proposed elevations, you've got it covers the existing archway that you can't see, but this is to be kept internally. The new lower extension is to cover this archway, providing access into a proposed store, and into the reception area for the events. This area here is an existing structure. It's going to be re-walled and re-roofed to include three roof lights. As you can see, it almost sits at the approximate height of what the existing building does to the north elevation. And beyond that is, in this area, it will be the new rustic steel extension, which is the two-storey element, which sits just below, as you can see, the existing ridge height of the barn, with the outdoor first floor area further west. This here is almost a section through the building. That's not an external door, it's an internal door that takes you from the proposed reception and bar areas into the hallway, which beyond this, located within the plant room, is the storage areas, which I'll be able to show you on another slide. So this is the southern elevation of the building. The existing elevation here, as you can see, the broken wall, which is being retained on the proposed southern elevation, with the rustic steel extension set below the ridge again, with the openings being in a southwestern direction, and then the openings on the west elevation down here. Yeah, these three openings are existing openings, as you can see there, with one new opening within the external wall to be first floor, with two Velux roof lights in the roof. And then this is just a section of the outdoor seating area. You can see it's planning to screen it from views from the west. It's almost set down slightly at the same ground floor level as the building, and it's planning to screen it from the west. Internally is the large archway on the southern gable, which takes you into the proposed reception room where wedding events will be held. The new extension areas are in this location and this location here. This is a store building, but the new steel structure will accommodate a bar and reception and entrance foyer and a DJ area, and then a bit further to the rear you've got your female, male and accessible toilets, an office for the staff working there, and then a kitchen with access to the reception room. You see there, it's just the plant room is mentioned at the top, but it's not seen on this slide. This is the first floor layout. So the existing barn that's being converted is floor to ceiling height in this area. These two openings are at ground floor, so you've got floor to ceiling height room. There is just a mezzanine floor with the new proposed opening on the southern gable there, an entrance to a storeroom towards the back of the extension. A sweet and snug area just to allow any photographers to take pictures of the events that are going on, and if anyone wants photographs. And then access to the first floor area with a glass balustrade to prevent, just for health and safety, prevent anyone falling from above. Just a similar plan there, just to show the extent of the roof works. This section here is the 2-story steel structure with the first floor extension there, and then the green roof to the rear of the application site. These are the plant rooms located on the northern boundary. As you can see, I don't know if you can read what they say, but there is the storage, generators, battery and electrical and refuse areas in the northwestern one. This is to have the solar array above. And then the smaller plant room of the two is for the air source heat pumps, and I'm not too sure. I can't picture out what water storage, and I'm not too sure what that central one says. But here's the retaining wall with the fields beyond that are going to remain as they are currently. And a turning area for deliveries and people that are turning up in cars that need a bit of extra space to turn around and drops off. Turning to the lighting plan. So the majority of the lighting throughout the site, you can just picture those little dots jotted across the site, and there's a key up here. So majority of them are low level and bollard lighting, predominantly located in the parking and access areas, with the additional occasional floodlights just on the southern elevation of the building, as well as the outdoor seating area. And turning to the landscaping within the site, so you've got the woodland area to the east with the pond beyond, and then a small area of woodland planting here. Some turfed areas throughout the site, just to encourage biodiversity net gain within the site, and then the intervening planting between the car parking areas, and a new turfed area of grass with wildflower planting beyond there, the green roof here, and some new lawn and tree planting along this section here. And then to the southern elevation is just a mixture of wildflower planting and turfed lawn. So just turning to the amenity side of things. So the application site is the star in the centre of the screen. You've got the nearest residential property to 300 metres to the northeast, and then they get further away as you go around the site. So you've got the two grade 2 listed buildings down here, 630 metres away, with the agricultural application site on the top of the hill up here. And the furthest dwelling away is 790 metres to the northwest. This is the fallback position of the site. So you can see the red is the existing farmhouse, which was vacant due to fire damage, and it's currently being restored. The two central units have planning permission to be used as residential dwellings, and the existing use of the application site has been changed under permitted development to Class R to a C1 use, which is a hotel. So this is the internal area that is considered to be used as a C1 use, and then the curtilage relating to that C1 use. So this was done under permitted development, and there was no application needed to convert the barns from agricultural to C1. The only time we would need an application is any proposed alterations that are required to this barn. And just some photos of the access. So this is the existing access in, currently about 5.5 metres in width as you enter the site. And that is 100 centimetres visibility down out of the access, which is 70 metres in that direction. And then to the left is 70 metres up in that direction too. Just some long distance views of the application site. So the top left photo is from the the Bridleway, the Pennine Bridleway, about 0.7 miles to the northeast. As you can see, it doesn't protrude any further than what it does now. You can just see the top of it very faintly, the top of the ridge of the existing building just below the arrow. The central photo is the view of the application site from the Grade 2 listed buildings, so very long distance views. And then this photo is from the top of Calvin Hill Lane, which is to the east, as you can see just at the bottom of the photograph there. Just some more long distance views. So this is from further north on Tom Lane. The application site sits in almost the valley of the hills. And then this is the view into the site from the top of Wally Wise Lane, adjacent the site. And just to finish, this is a 3D impression of what the intentions have the application site to look like. So you can see the holiday accommodation to Unit 1, Unit 2 and Unit 3 with the wedding venue to the western side of the application site. And the recommendation is for approval with conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for the case officer? Let's go to Councillor Heseltine and Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Just two or three, Mr. Holmes. What would you say are included in the definition of events stroke weddings? I understand what a wedding is.
Yeah, so the events
surely is a bit open-ended.
Yeah.
Does it include music festival, raves?
Can I talk? So the events it doesn't include your likes of music festivals, etc. It's more your commercial business events like conferences for your external businesses that are wanting to bring new ventures to this part of Craven. Yeah. So I've got no record of when it was last used, but from previous applications that have spanned from 2021 to the current date, the few visits I've done, there's been no use of this as a working farm. So I would establish that it'd be probably 5 to 8 years of what we've got evidence of. Mm-hmm. No comment on that.
Extension. But informed that it's going to be built of weathered steel, giving it a natural rust-like finish. Well, it wouldn't match those that you're taking away, a natural rust-like finish. But it's hardly good quality local stone, is it, which we would expect in that location. It's a commercial, entirely commercial building in open countryside. How does that satisfy planning policy?
So the materials used are considered to be very similar to what would have been there in terms of when they wasn't as rusty or derelict as they are now, but it shows similar visual impressions of an agricultural building that it has been used as for the many years that it's been there. So it give the feel. Whilst I can appreciate it's a stone barn, it's almost a contemporary design in the local countryside, but doesn't sway away from what the existing materials are used in an agricultural setting. I wouldn't say it's incongruous, no. No.
On paragraph 7.3, Chairman, it stated that there, and you've said this afternoon, that there's visibility flares of 70 metres either side. On other applications that we've had, 70 metres wouldn't have been acceptable. What are the North Yorkshire Highways minimum visibility flares? What are the minimum visibility flares on North Yorkshire Highway roads?
I think that comes down, it varies from site to site. I think what we've got in this application that we've got before is that it has been assessed by Highways in terms of this, reference the 2 dwellings, and they've assessed it in terms of the speed of vehicles moving across there, the actual level of vehicles moving across there. So this 70 metres is lower, and I can't remember off the top of my head what we normally kind of get because it does vary, but they have considered that in this instance, due to the low level of traffic, the good visibility that we have is that the 70 metres is acceptable in this instance.
Sorry, can I just get some clarification on that? Can I just jump in for 1 minute? Because one of the objectors wrote in, and they were of the impression that visibility displays on national speed limit roads should be up to 215 metres, I think. I don't know if that's correct or not because I'm not a highways expert. But in all of the circumstances, with the highways were satisfied that even though that's a national speed limit road, visibility display of 70 metres was acceptable. That's what we've been told. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, yes, it is. They've done their assessment, and based on the constraints and the situation on site, they are of the opinion that 70 metres is an acceptable visibility display.
But paragraph 10.6, Chairman, it states it is considered that this proposal would help the longevity of the farm. Well, it's not a working farm. The land must be let out or grazed by others. How is it going to help the longevity of the farm? The only thing that I can see is that the existing farmhouse will be part of this development, and this will surely lead to a further application for a new built farmhouse to serve this landholding, and no doubt some replacement agricultural buildings in open countryside. The justification just doesn't add up. And the bottom line is, I might as well finish off. The bottom line on this application surely is that it is in remote open countryside and is not related to either the needs of agriculture or forestry. Clearly as such, it's a non-conforming use. I've dealt with more than half a dozen applications over the years, running into tens of thousands, and I've never seen one as far away from a sensible solution as this. I'll keep an open mind while my colleagues debating.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I've got about 6 questions, I'm afraid. Firstly, capacity. how many people is the actual hall designed to hold for a wedding? What's the maximum number of people that might turn up at a wedding? I mean, I note the 36 car parking spaces. I'm trying to work out, 'cause normally a wedding you'd expect perhaps 100 people to be there. I'm trying to work out the logistics of the parking spaces, the size of the venue, and the number of journeys.
So yeah, in the officer's report at 5.8, it gives details submitted indicate that the site would hold approximately 30 weddings stroke events a year with a maximum capacity of 100 guests per wedding and 120, increasing to 120 with the reception.
I'd read that. Now, I'm just trying to make it square. 100 guests to 120 guests, plus people servicing the venue and working there, and yet only 36 parking spaces. And that doesn't add up to me. And the other question that I have related to that is it enforceable that there should be only 30 events a year? I mean, that's ready for the lawyer to advise me. Is it something you can put a condition on, or could they theoretically hold events 365 days a year? Very least questionable as to whether it would be necessary and reasonable, and we might struggle to impose it, and it may be that it's higher. Okay, okay. And just I need to, make my decisions on that basis. Is there any evidence of a shortage of wedding venues in the area? I mean, I'm aware of a wedding venue just at Thornton in Craven with significant capacity. Is there any evidence that we're currently short of wedding venues in the
If I can just come through you, Chair. Unfortunately, that is not a planning consideration before us. Whether there are other wedding venues or not, it's not something that we can actually consider. Can I just jump back, reference the parking provision in paragraph 10.59 of the officer's report? The applicant has stated that there will be the provision of minibuses to kind of bring people back and forth from the venue. So just so members are aware of that as well.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on whether that's relevant, because what we're trying to judge is whether this is contributing to the rural economy and improving the strength of the rural economy. And if there's a shortage of wedding venues, that would make a difference to my judgment. The second thing that would make a difference to my judgment in that area is there any reason to believe that providing an extra wedding venue would increase the number of weddings taking place in the area, or would the number of weddings take place be the same, in which case the assumption must surely be it would relocate economic activity, not increase it?
I can respond, Chair, through you. There is no policy requirement for anybody to demonstrate whether there is an economic need for any form of business that comes before the council. We have them before us, we have to assess them against the local plan policies, and that's as much as we can do. It's down to market forces at the end of the day. Yeah.
So I can make my own judgment about whether it contributes to the rural economy and improves employment. Okay. The use of weathered steel and wood, we have under the Craven local plan design guides, don't we, which have been approved and passed by the planning inspectorate. Does that comply with the vernacular for this location?
Through you, Chair. What I would probably say is that this development has been designed with a certain purpose in mind. We've got the farmhouse, which is traditional. We've got the two buildings just coming off the farmhouse, which are traditional. But the wedding venue itself has been designed to be a more contemporary development. The use of materials are slightly different to what we would normally expect, but actually because of the design of the building and its actual use, we consider as officers that this is an appropriate use of materials in terms of this, because it does really tell you exactly what it is.
A matter of judgment about whether it complies with the design guidelines which we've passed as the local plan. Okay, final thing is just fallback position. I'm trying to understand the fallback position on housing. I understand that the fallback position is they can build a hotel here in the existing footprint of the stone buildings. And that permission for that already exists. Am I right? The permission also exists for two houses, and they could fall back to that.
That's correct, yeah.
Councillor Brown.
Just a couple of quick questions. Has there been no representation from the parish council received yet? Which is the parish council for this? Cowley, right. Which I find a bit strange, really. Have they had enough time to respond? My second question was, this is a working, the site is part of a working farm, I presume.
As far as we're aware, it is forming part of the working farm.
Do we know how big that farm is? How many acres?
Part of this application, no, we don't, because it wouldn't have been forming part of the assessment.
It appears to be part of an uplands farm scenario, and I know how difficult farmers can be economically in an upland farm. It can be very difficult. It's not like a one in my neck of the woods. That's all I really wanted to ask.
Can I just jump in on that? And the benefit of people in the room, I'm not a farmer. I know that some farmers here. In terms of the type of farming that something like this would be used for, would it be for the grazing of sheep? In which case, would you need agricultural buildings on site if you had sheep? Does anyone know the answer to that?
I suppose there is a question about that, because if you've got the farm and it's still operating, this does, and policy and national policy does allow farms to diversify, to allow them to be able to obviously continue to farm. So in our opinion, this is a type of farm diversification, because it will allow the farm to still farm, but also allows the farm to have a secondary form of income to feed back into that existing enterprise.
I asked a question whether it was a working farm, and the response I got from officers, well, no, it wasn't a working farm. My colleague has just asked a question whether it's a working farm, and initially said, yes, it is a working farm. It cannot be both. A working farm needs a full set of agricultural buildings and a farmhouse, and this does not have that. Well, it cannot be a working farm. The land has still to be farmed and managed, but not as a working farm. I've done a bit of farming.
Through you, Chair, if I can just clarify, I think when we were talking I think the question was how long the farm had been empty. We're talking about the actual buildings themselves, because obviously there's been a fire, the farm has been left and abandoned. That doesn't mean that the land around it has been abandoned. So when we're saying that when we're giving you that time scale, we're talking about the actual buildings themselves. As far as we're aware, they have been vacant for that period between 5 and 8 years. We've not given you details in terms of what's been happening in terms of the surrounding farmland, because obviously we don't have that information before us.
Can I just indulge myself and ask a couple of questions? Actually, the first one, I think when I've looked through the objections, they seem to have been mainly focused around two areas, which is increased volume of traffic and road safety. And we've had a response from you in terms of that. The other main objections to me appear to be around noise and noise pollution. So I've read the acoustic report, and so far as I can see, the acoustic report's recommending ongoing monitoring. So as it stands, are we saying we can't really say what the level of noise pollution will be? There are some recommendations in there that music and the venue is kept below a certain level of decibels. But in terms of going forward, is that more of an environmental health issue, or is that a planning issue? Can we condition the noise generation through planning, or does that fall back to environmental health and kind of a potential noise abatement order or something of that nature if things were, basically noise monitoring?
No, through you, Chair. Yeah, that didn't sound very good. It is part of planning, and it would also fall potentially under environmental health. So what we've got is within the conditions, condition 11 and 12 are probably the key ones. They're about noise management and the mitigation measures which are set out within the acoustic report. We feel that they are sufficient enough to be able to address those concerns referenced the potential noise issues. If however, there were issues moving further down the line, then that would then come under separate legislation, which would be the environmental team that would then monitor that and take action if necessary. But based on what we've got before us, we're confident that if they comply with the conditions, then we will not have a noise issue in terms of this development.
Okay. Anyone else have any more questions for the officers? Okay, so if we could move on then to the debate. Would anyone like to kick us off? Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We don't have the speakers. So we have, I understand, 2 speakers today. We don't have any objectors that are registered to speak, or anyone from the parish council. Councillor Brown is the divisional member, but he's decided he's going to take part in the debate and reserve judgment for today.
Place on record that I genuinely called it in because there was a lot of public concern, but I had an open mind and still have an open mind.
Thank you. So we have 2 speakers for the applicant. Well, the applicant and the agent. Ordinarily, one person would have 5 minutes to speak, but they've asked that the applicant and the agent both would like to speak to us. So the applicant is Michael Drackard, and he's going to speak to us for 2 minutes. And then the agent is Tom Warren, and he's going to use the rest of that 5-minute period. So he'll speak to us for 3 minutes. We are quite strict on time, just for the purpose of being fair to everybody. So we will be timing it, and we'll give you kind of a few seconds warning to round things up. But if I could ask Michael to come, Mr. Drackard, sorry, to come forward and speak to us first. Is it that microphone there?
Yeah. Okay, off and away. Okay, well, I'm not going to deal with any planning because obviously I'm not an expert in that area. I just want to really deal with the background and the ethos behind it. So the first thing I want to deal with the ownership. This is not some big corporate entity that's trying to drive monthly or annual targets. This is a family-run business. It's my personal family, and it's one of our personal sort of like hopes that we deliver something of really special. Now, in terms of the whole entity itself, I would say that we have really tried very hard to keep the traditional element as much as possible. The traditional element has been helped by the builders who have used traditional materials, original materials wherever possible, stone, slate. The architects have done exactly the same. We've even reused some of the massive slates that we found in the milking parlour and the hay barn outside, some of the cobbles that we discovered under a foot worth of muck and mud, as it were. And the architects have kept all of the beautiful architecture, like the arches and the slit windows, even the stone guttering. Where we have gone away from the traditional is how we're going to run the actual business. And the business itself is going to be heated and provided with hot water through air source heat pumps, which at least in some regard are going to be driven by electricity on solar panels. We've added to the traditional insulation of new buildings, which is exemplary now, but we put in insulated roof felt, triple glazed windows, and we're also have added right across mechanical heat recovery, which takes out the moisture out of the buildings and adds back in all of the heat. So it's super efficient in terms of how it's actually run. And we're very lucky in terms of its location. It's already been highlighted that a lot of the building is actually behind the original building. From the south, you'll just see the beautiful facade, all that original feature as I was talking about. And from the north, from the road, you can hardly see it at all because of the lay of the land. And the last thing I'll talk about is the land itself. So I'm not going to register it as an organic farm. It is a working farm, just to pick up on your point. It's going to be diversified. It's currently sheep and nuts, and that's where I want to try and develop it as such. But we're adding a lots of things for nature. I'm not going to put any chemicals on the land. As I say, run it like organic, but not register it. We're going to have ponds and hedgerows and all sorts of things. I know that biodiversity is part of planning now, but at the end of the day, this is one of the core things that I want to try and deliver on this particular farm. I know you have on your own objectives to try and diversify and increase the economy. I genuinely believe it will tick quite a lot of those boxes. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Drackard. Could Mr. Warren now speak with you? You have 3 minutes from when you start speaking. Thank you.
Chair, members, I'm Tom Warren. I'm a professional agricultural consultant, member of the Agricultural Law Association, but I specialise in rural planning. I just want to address some of the objections with regards to highways points. Visibility has been assessed using on-site speed surveys, which showed vehicles past the site on Wally-Wise Lane at an average speed of 30.6 miles per hour westbound and 31.1 miles per hour eastbound. This reflects how drivers naturally slow down due to the local road geometry. Visibility displays are based on these real-world conditions, which exceed national guidance and lie entirely within land controlled by the applicant. That will be secured by a Section 184 agreement with the Highway Authority. I'm not a technical person on that, but Joe's over there if you have specialist questions. The access will be resurfaced, widened, redesigned for safer and more convenient entry and exit. Wally-Wise Lane sees low traffic volumes, just 123 vehicles per day on average, which covers both directions. Parking will be managed proactively with clear guest guidance, car sharing, pre-booked local minibuses. The site provides 36 spaces, which equates to 1 per 2.7 guests, more generous than other approved rural venues. Swept path analysis confirms that emergency refuse and delivery vehicles can safely access, turn and exit in forward gear, minimising any disruption. We've obviously achieved 44.38% biodiversity net gain. The minimum requirement is 10%, so we're well above that. Non-invasive, self-sufficient energy plans for solar, air source heat pumps, as Mike just said, and sustainable water use. There's no plans for any marquees. I know it was touched on in the planning statement as a sort of it could be done under a 28-day notice, basically, but there's no plans for any outdoor marquees, and there's definitely no plans for any outdoor music use in said marquees. Anything music-wise would be inside the building, which have got walls about that thick. There's definitely no plans for any fireworks, so not addressing those sort of noise concerns. Acoustic and lighting reports were submitted with mitigation to protect any amenity for neighbouring people in the valley. There's no plans for any winter weddings because obviously nobody could access it in icy conditions. As we said earlier, minibuses basically are proposed to be booked locally. and ferry people in from local areas and then take them back to local hotels and bed and breakfasts and guest houses. So it's not just a benefit for Whalley Wise, but also for other businesses in the local area.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I think we're now ready to go into the debate, aren't we? Sorry about earlier. Who would like to start us off? Councillor Brown, I'll go to you first.
I may want to speak more than once if I can. Yeah, I mean, there's clearly some significant positives here. I mean, it's been put forward with some brilliant sustainability initiatives. I mean, they really are top of the range rather than lip service for once. And same is true of the biodiversity net gain side of things. I think it's very genuine. Things like the attenuation ponds serving double purposes of wildlife and improvements, etc. And there's quite a lot of planting and screening. So that plan looks good. I think the actual work on the existing crumbling buildings, I mean, it's great to get those derelict buildings brought back into use. That's a really positive thing, and I can fully, support that. Where I get difficulties is when I come to our actual local plan and our actual local plan criteria, and also some of the other aspects of it. I'm not convinced it's farm diversification. And that's an important thing not to be convinced of, because we're actually looking at policy EC1, employment and economic development, and it doesn't meet any of the tests of it being in an existing settlement. So we're dealing with paragraphs G to J, and the only one of those paragraphs that might remotely apply, or that might apply, is the proposal will benefit the rural economy in accordance with policy EC3. So I'm not convinced that EC1J is met, because when you look at that EC3, one of the criteria is that it's helping to diversify existing farms. And I think farming is going on there, but I'm not convinced it's the prime driver. I'm also not convinced that the extension complies with the Craven District Council's local plan design guides, which are very much for stone and natural site roofs and etc. And I'm not convinced that bit of it is compliant with it. I'm not convinced there are economic gains, which is one of the other criteria under EC3. Because basically, if you're building a wedding venue, all you're doing is moving activity from one wedding venue to another. There's no evidence that I can think of that suggests there's more weddings going to take place in the Craven area because you build a new wedding venue, or that there'll be any change in the economic activity. All that'll happen is it'll be relocated. So I don't think I can take account of increased jobs, because the jobs have just been moved from one wedding venue to another. When we look at the access routes, I have to accept the highways experts' assessment that pulling out onto that road is safe and there's enough vision for it, and I actually think it complies with common sense as well. What I don't accept is that they thoroughly reviewed the impacts on the whole of that road. Almost all the concerns raised by local residents were on the increase of traffic approaching to it. And no mention was made in any of the highways assessments of the impact on the fact it's a major recreational cycling route. It's only one vehicle wide. And I cycle it regularly, and it is quite dangerous if you're coming down, going over the corners, and there's traffic coming in the other direction. So I'm concerned about the wider transport issues, not just the immediate access, and I don't think they've been properly assessed in a common sense way. I'm also, I think a lot of the design is brilliant, but I'm not convinced that extension complies with our Craven District Council local plan. So I think I'd love to see this go forward in a modified version. I can't see any great problem with a hotel that has a small number of guests. I can't see any great problem with increased housing there. In fact, the reverse, I can see great gain in having increased housing there, but I can't see sufficient economic gain from a wedding venue to justify us saying EC1J applies, and I can't see that the design guidelines enable us to pass the extension. So I think on those two grounds, I'd have to suggest rejection and a renegotiation to try and see whether the fallback positions can arrive at something that suits the applicant. I accept very well-intentioned, very good ideas, but I'm not convinced this particular one is exactly right for the location.
Councillor Ireton, then Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to think about the location of this wedding venue. And I would imagine from that location, I don't know the area as well as you, Councillor Brown, but I should imagine it's pretty close to the Lancashire border, is it? So therefore, I would think perhaps a lot of the activity that may come to that location would be from across the Lancashire border, where you've got the bigger conurbations. So I'm not convinced that this won't be an increase in the economics of North Yorkshire, and in particular of the applicant. Moving on to the proposed extension and the materials, I would have thought that would fit better than seeing more massive stone. It would still keep that agricultural feel to the development. And as far as the highways, I think you've accepted that that is acceptable. I don't think we can assess what goes on 2 miles away from a junction. I think that would be very unfair. And it's only recently I was reading an appeal from an inspector where the visibility displays weren't achieved. And the inspector said because of the volume of traffic and the recorded speeds, it wasn't necessary to stick to the proposed 230 or whatever visibility displays. And I don't know whether that was an application from North Yorkshire or whether it was one from the National Park. So I think the application that's in front of us, yes, it's in a very open landscape, but most of those actual buildings are there, you know. And do we want to see them deteriorate further, or do we want to pass something with a different extension to it, different materials, which I think it would be an improvement. I also recall going to Ampleforth, to the college at Ampleforth, beautiful old buildings, and very near to it was very modern cedar sleeping accommodation, and that contrast was totally acceptable. So I am prepared to move the officer's recommendation for approval.
Councillor Brown.
Just a few comments, Chairman. I actually do have a little bit of experience of wedding venues because I have one next door to where we live, and they have considerably more than 30 weddings at the place. It's about 200 yards from where we are. We never hear any noise. The people who go to that wedding venue enjoy themselves, no doubt. It's profitable to the applicant, and if we're looking at economic benefit, I'm sure the applicant have done their sums, and it will be, they wouldn't be going ahead with a wedding venue if it didn't look as though the sums added up. And if that's good for the Craven area, then I'm very happy for the Craven area to benefit from that, whether it's employment of 2 or 3 people or 7. That is employment at a time when employment is going up. It is going down, sorry. Unemployment's going up. So as far as the diversity is concerned, and those people who think I know nothing about this area, I was at school within 3 miles of this place many years ago, too many years ago, and frankly, I used to walk up to Cowling and up the hill, and it's a beautiful place. And if you're going to have a wedding venue, then think of the happy couple who are going to get married and are going to have a lovely venue with lovely views involved in this particular site. To be quite frank, if we're looking for economic development as a country, then this should be welcomed, in my view. As far as dereliction is concerned, if it's a derelict area and derelict buildings, and they're going to be done up, that is a benefit, in my view. So I would be prepared to second my colleague's proposal to accept this.
Thank you. Councillor Heseltine, did you want to come in with any comments? No, well, you had said earlier that you'll save the rest of your remarks for the debate, you see, so I was wondering whether you had any. Right. Councillor Brown, is there anything you want to come back to? Before I start talking myself, that's all. I'm just okay, right. So I think from what I've heard, I'm tending to side with my colleague sat to my right over here. In terms of the extension, I understand some of the concerns about possible materials might not be in keeping, but we're kind of in a nuanced world where we strive for solar panels and air source heat pumps and all kinds of installations that are not traditional and certainly not in keeping, but we're quite happy to have. I think everybody's happy for these things to be on site, even though they might look a bit alien to what was there 50 or 100 years ago. And I think under the circumstances, the proposed materials for the extension are subtle and minimalistic, to say the least. So I don't think, and also because it's to the side of the building, I can't really see it having much of a visual impact on the surroundings in a negative way. So I'm quite happy with that aspect. As regards economic gain, well, I think we probably live in a time where people are having more lavish and larger weddings than they've ever had before. Even if the number of marriages is falling, there is very much a need for these kind of venues. I don't buy into the argument that we're just relocating one set of jobs from one location to another. What we're trying to do is build up North Yorkshire, and I think that this would enhance the local economy. Beyond that, it's just general commercial competition, isn't it? You could say that about any application. Well, will the need be there for it in the future? Well, you don't know. That's the risk that entrepreneurs and business people make, and I think we should commend them for having the confidence and the bravery to go forward and put their money where their mouth and trying to make something of their plans. So in terms of my other concerns, I think we've dealt with the traffic issues. We've heard that the actual average speed that's being driven by vehicles on these roads on either side is very low 30, so I think we've dealt with that. I think the noise issue and the objections in terms of noise are dealt with adequately and sensibly under the conditions that are attached to the planning application or the planning permission if it goes through. So I'm personally quite happy to support this application. So if anyone else would like to speak, Councillor Brown.
I'll just have one more try. I'd just like you to visualise the impact on that quiet road, which is basically you can only have vehicles going one way at a time, and then you've got to go passing place of increased traffic use. And it's quite significant, I think, for the people living along it and for the people travelling along it, and the farmers have got to do their business going backwards and forwards to it. So I would ask that we consider putting a condition on that is in line with what we've been told, that we limit the number of events to no larger than 100 guests, and we limit the number of events to, let's go above what they've indicated and say 50 per year. Would such a condition be acceptable to the proposers of acceptance?
Yeah, I would be dead set against that. I think if someone is running a successful business, then more power to their arm and let that success continue. I think if they can generate more events, that brings more money into the local economy. It would sustain a family that want to live and work and keep generations in this area. So I would be 100% against that, I'm afraid.
See the concern level of the local people who live on the street that of the increase in volume.
As I said earlier, Chairman, that we have more than 30, we have more than probably 50, in less than 250 yards away from us, and we don't hear it. If it's policed properly, and it's a lovely area, it's a quiet area. The houses that are adjacent to it are well away from here, and I'm sure that if they're going to have a successful business, that all these precautions will be taken into account, and it won't be spoilt. It looks a pretty good design, and I think fire regulations limit the number of people for the size of the building, in any event. So, to be quite frank, I think anything that helps business in this day and age. And I won't get into politics of national politics about business development, but anything that supports our country and its endeavours to make it an economic success of whichever party is in control should be welcomed, in my view.
Councillor Ayrton.
No, I just wanted to say that I think it will be an unreasonable condition to put on. I think it's one that will be very difficult to monitor, very difficult to enforce, and I think that location, when I came this morning to the site visit, there's several roads leading into that very near location. There's crossroads here, there. They'll not be all coming one direction, will they? So I think it's unreasonable.
I think I'd also add, I think we'd heard that there was approximately 120 vehicle movements along that stretch of road in any one day. If we're going to have 36, maybe 40 with service vehicles on site at any one occasion, they're going to be going in, possibly spending 8 to 10 hours there during the day. So one trip in, one trip out, another 80 vehicle movements a day. So that would increase it to 200 during a day. 200 vehicle movements divided by a period of 12 hours. It's probably one car coming along there every 5 or 6 minutes. So the chances of actually encountering another vehicle are probably reasonably limited. So if it was a supermarket and we were having 500 cars there, I could buy that argument. But based on the number of vehicle movements and my back of a fag packet calculations, I don't buy that argument, I'm afraid.
I'll have one last go, if I may. I'd welcome it if colleagues could back me when I approach the gritting unit to try and get increased gritting of this road. And I'm told yet again that the residents here don't need to come out of their houses for 3 or 4 days, and we can't be bothered to grit it.
Does anyone have any more contributions for the debate? Okay, so if we go to the vote, I understand Councillor Ayrton has proposed that we grant the planning application subject to the conditions that are laid out before us, which has been seconded by Councillor Nick Brown. So all those in favour? Any against? Okay, so that motion is carried, or the planning permission is granted. Thank you very much. So if we move on to agenda item 5, any other items of business? Anything else that anyone wants to bring up today? That would be a no. So agenda item 6, the date of the next meeting is scheduled for Monday the 8th of September at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. with a venue to be decided, because I understand that this venue will not be available on that date. So thank you very much for everybody's attendance today, and thank you to officers who supported us during this meeting.